Well, I'm going to start us up again. So my name is Mike Abelsmeyer. I'm the portfolio director on the management list here at McGraw-Hill Education. I'm proud to announce Patrick Wright from University of South Carolina. Patrick is part of our speaker series today on a bunch of different topical areas on preparing students for their future career success. A little background on Patrick. Patrick Wright is the Thomas Vanderveer Bicentennial Chair of Business at the Darla Moore School of Business at the University of South Carolina, and the founder and director of the Center for Executive Succession. He teaches, conducts research, and consults in the area of strategic human resource management, particularly focusing on how firms use people as a source of competitive advantage, the changing nature of the chief HR officer role, and the issues, challenges, and best practices in CEO succession. He is the co-author of the McGraw-Hill book, Human Resource Management, now in its 13th edition. Over the past 2 years, he's been the co-leader of the HR Competency Study, a global research effort started by Dave Ulrich in 1987, and conducted approximately every 5 years since then. The study identifies the emerging competencies required of HR professionals, and in the most recent iteration expanded to explore the business and human capabilities that drive organizational performance. Today, he'll be reporting some of those results from that study and discussing the implications for organizations and HR. So without further ado, I present to you Patrick Wright.
All right, thanks, Mike. So yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about the background of the study. If you follow Dave Ulrich for the last 30 years, Dave every year does the HR Competency Study, or every 5 years does this HR Competency Study. And this year, we actually changed the name of it to the HR Competency and Capability Study, because as Mike mentioned in the intro, the study expanded to focus on capabilities, organization capabilities, and human capability as well this round, as well as just the typical focus on HR competency. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. And I will say it was a huge honor to be part of this study. If you followed this, this has been kind of the competency model that has guided the field, and every 5 years, people wait to see what the new model suggests, because it's trying to look at how competencies are evolving within the HR profession. And so it was great to be part of it this year. The last round, which was about 5 years ago in 2016, I was actually Mike Ulrich's dissertation chair, and Mike was with Dave Krasinski and Dave Ulrich were running that study. So I got to see kind of how it went, and then this round actually participate in it. So just to give you an idea of where we're going to be going today is just some of the themes that we'll be covering. And I want to talk a little bit about this idea of navigating HR's impact, because the reason we titled this presentation around navigating HR's impact is that, all of the work we do is really focused on how do we kind of translate ideas into impact. And we don't want to do any type of study that's just a descriptive study of here's what's going on, but more so about what are the things that are going on that actually drive business success. And we conducted the study kind of in this latter stage. I'd love to say the latter stage of the pandemic, but I guess we never know that there's going to be an end to that. But we were coming probably about 6 months into the pandemic was when we conducted the study. So we were kind of through the worst part of it, and most of the reorganizations that had gone on. And it was really around, what did it take organizationally and professionally to navigate all of the things that were happening during that time. And again, if you think about it, here was the kind of stuff that has gone on in the last year, right? I mean, we had a global recession as all of these economies just shut down for a while to be able to manage the pandemic issue. We had the COVID pandemic itself and all of the changes that drove within organizations and the way work was conducted. Particularly in the US, you might have seen that we've got some political posturing over the last year as the election was going on and following the election, all of the things that have happened. And then over the summer, the previous summer, we had the George Floyd incident, and then just a whole uprising with regard to the social injustice that has taken place within the United States, and that actually went global. But all of the Black Lives Matter protests that were going on across the U.S. And the U.K. So a big emphasis on social injustice, what we call kind of an emotional deficit disorder. We see stress, suicide rates, alcoholism, all of these things are up right now in the US. And then this digital revolution that is just changing the way organizations do just about everything in terms of doing business with their customers, doing business with suppliers, managing employees, all of that. So this is a business context that really sets up the need for change. And then if you look at what's going on within kind of the large regulatory, say kind of board environment, what you see is the SEC is now discussing new rules on human capital disclosures. I'm part of the NACD, the National Association of Corporate Directors, and about a year or so ago, they came out with a report about culture as a corporate asset. And so boards of directors are now focused on organization culture and feeling like they have a role in monitoring and trying to help make sure that the leaders of the organization are effectively managing organization culture. You look at the valuation of companies, and I think the upper left-hand corner there, how much of the valuation of companies has become based on intangible assets as opposed to tangible assets of physical plant, equipment, all of those things. And just the accounting framework to reset the value of talent in the new world of work. Business Roundtable coming out with their statement about the idea that companies are about more than just than simply shareholders. And so what you see with this is that central to all of these trends going on is what we call the idea of human capability. Okay, this is all of these trends are focusing on the human capital in the organization and the human capability, the ability to bring together all of that human capital to work for the benefit of the organization. Now, what do we mean by human capability? I like to think of it in terms of three pieces to human capability. And Dave Ulrich likes to talk about the idea of, he puts one hand up and the little fingers, that's talent. Those are the individuals and their talent. And then he puts this fist up and says, that's the organization. It's the processes, the structure, all of the things that happen in the organization. And then when you put those together, that's what leadership is all about, is it's bringing together the talent within a set of processes and structure to be able to create this ability of the humans within the organization, that capability to deliver value to shareholders, customers, employees, suppliers, etc. And underlying all of that is, what does the HR function do? How can HR effectively help manage talent, leadership, and organization? And so, kind of thinking about the assumptions, or the assumptions that we take is that, first of all, HR is not about HR. And this has been something that Dave has been preaching on for years, but HR is really about delivering value and delivering value, again, not to shareholders only, but to all the stakeholders, both inside the organization and outside the organization. And that the role of HR is to contribute human capability, again, talent, leadership, and organization to all of those stakeholders. And that HR reinvention occurs through the HR department, HR people, and business conversations between HR professionals and business leaders. So just to give you an overview, I've mentioned this, if you aren't familiar with the HRCS, first round was conducted in 1987, and you've got the different competency models. You can see just about every 5, sometimes 4 years, just about every 5 years, Dave has conducted a new study, and I mentioned the 2016 study I actually joined the faculty at University of South Carolina in 2011. And at that point in time, Mike Ulrich was just starting as a PhD student, and he had been working on some of the books reporting the results from the 2012 study. And then in 2016 was when they conducted the study, and Mike's dissertation was based on that study. And then now we're in the 2021 study. Okay. And, a whole team of people involved. Mike obviously was the leader on this, running all of the operations. He's been involved in this study for a few iterations now. Myself, Aaron Burns, who is a leader at RBL Group, and Scott DeRue, who at the time was the dean of the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. He's now taken over as the CEO of a fitness firm based out of New York City. Then Kayleen Alsop, who was the project manager, kept everything on running on time. And Dave and Wayne Brockbank, who Wayne has worked with Dave on this over the course of every iteration of this. And they just really acted as advisors to us as we were conducting the study. And it's mentioned it's a global study. The way the study has run really for probably the past 6 or 7 iterations is partnering with professional societies, or in some cases, consulting firms or universities around the globe, and having these partners that connect with the companies to recruit participants in the company. And so, we end up with a very global study. And just to show you an idea of what that looks like, the way we structure the study is, again, primary focus is around HR professionals and the competencies that they need to be able to succeed, and that actually drive results, both personal results and business results. And so that kind of yellow circle there, that is the number of HR participants that we had. So kind of the focal people that are being evaluated with regard to their their competencies. And so again, about 3,600 of those. And then it's run as pretty much of a 360. So when they're participating, their supervisor is completing a survey about them and about the organization. Their HR associates, their peers within the HR organization, are also evaluating them in terms of their competencies and reporting some characteristics of the HR department and the organization. And then also their non-HR peers are evaluating them and providing information on the organization. And so, when we talk about the individual level results, specifically with regard to HR competencies, what we're focused on are those roughly 3,600 HR professionals from around the globe. When we talk about the business results, what we're doing is aggregating all of those respondents to the same organization. And in that case, what we have is over 1,000 organizations that we have data on with regard to the characteristics of their HR department, their capabilities, their business capabilities, the kind of average of the competencies of the HR professionals that work within that organization. And then again, along the right side of the graph, you can see the types of HR participants, level, tenure, and so on. Okay. And really what this study focused on, we met probably about 2.5 or 3 years ago to start thinking about how we would conduct this study. And really we wanted to address 3 major questions. And the first one is, what are the business capabilities that help create to deliver value or deliver business results? The second is, what are the characteristics of an effective HR department? And then third is, what are the competencies that an HR professional needs to be able to deliver personal, stakeholder, and business results? And so those were the 3 research questions that we were hoping to answer, and really the structure around what we'll talk about with regard to the results. And I do want to say is that before I go to the next slide, Mike had this on the slide. If you have any questions at any point in time, feel free to type them into the Q&A. I've got that pulled up on my computer. So if I see a question appear, particularly if it's with immediacy to what I was just talking about, I'm happy to take a parenthetical break and answer your question for you. The chat is not nearly as easy for me to address. So Q&A would be a great place if you have any questions. So again, if you think about the questions we've got, this is the model that we use to help structure our thinking and to structure how we report the results. And to talk about the results, I want to keep in mind that really what we're focused on here with regard to results is the idea that HR is not just about doing HR stuff, that if HR is not somehow delivering results, then it's really not doing what it should do. And so we talk about the both let me come back here, both the individual level results. Okay, and so again, when people are evaluating these HR professionals with regard to their competencies, they're also evaluating how effective they are personally as an HR professional. And then a couple of months after the study, we went back to the non-HR participants and asked them to evaluate that HR professional in terms of how well they deliver value to their internal stakeholders in terms of employees and the strategy of the business. And second question is how well they deliver value to their external stakeholders, to customers, to shareholders, to the community. Okay, and so those were two measures of effectiveness of an individual HR professional. But then we also had a measure of the effectiveness of the business in terms of the business results. And that's really what this is about, is that we didn't just want to focus on financial results, which is a pure shareholder primacy approach to thinking about organizational effectiveness, but rather we wanted to have a more broad-based view of organizational effectiveness. And so we have a couple of items around employee results and how well does the company do compared to its competitors with regard to attracting and retaining employees and engaging employees. How well the company does with regard to strategy compared to its results in terms of innovation, new products, and so on. How well the organization does compared to its competitors with regard to customers in terms of customer satisfaction, customer retention, market share. How well it does relative to competitors with regard to financial results. And then last is how well it does relative to competitors with we kind of call it community results, really this corporate social responsibility or corporate social citizenship results. So there were a total of about 10 or 12 items there assessing these 5 components. And that's what we were trying to use as our measure of business results. Again, a broad-based view, not just a shareholder primacy view. So I'm going to give you the end of the story first, and then we'll talk about the pieces to that story. Take that first question in terms of what are the competencies that you need to deliver personal, stakeholder, and business results. That really is path A. And as you'll see, it doesn't explain that much of the business results. It really doesn't explain much variance in business results. But you'll see some of the later results that where HR competencies drive business results is primarily through building business capabilities and through building an effective HR department. Second question is, what should the characteristics of an effective HR department be? Okay, and that's really path B here. And then what are the business capabilities that drive business results? And that's path C. Now, keep in mind how to kind of interpret these results. And that is that top left, you see, when we regress the business capabilities, the HR competencies, and the HR department, when we regress results on those 3 variables, what happens is that those 3 variables explain 25% of the variance in business results. Again, for those of you that have done any kind of strategy research, explaining business results and being able to explain 25% of the variance in business results on things like this is a pretty significant amount of variance that's being explained. And then when we talk about these paths, what these paths are is of that 25%, what percentage of that 25% is coming from business capabilities, from the HR department, or from HR competency. So you can see that 48% of the 25% is explained by business capabilities. 48% of the 25% is explained by the HR department, and about 3.5% of the 25% is explained by the business results. Easier way to say that is probably about 12% of the variance in business results is explained by business capabilities, about 12% by the HR department, and about 1% by the HR competencies. So let's talk about the specifics with regard to these big categories of predictors of business results. So how do you help deliver organization capabilities? In particular, what are the organization capabilities that drive business results? Okay, so again, going back to the original assumption, HR is not about HR. It is all about our contributions and so again, if you think about what are the different groups within the organization, what do they manage? So again, if you're in finance, what does finance manage? Well, they manage money. Marketing, what does marketing manage? Well, marketing manages customers. Operations, manufacturing, what do they manage? Well, they manage systems. The question is, what does HR manage, right? And so our answer to that is kind of going back to what we talked about before. What HR manages is they manage human capability. The function is responsible for managing the human capability of the organization. So what are those results or those business capabilities that matter? Well, here are the ones that we assessed in this study. And these are the kinds of capabilities that a lot of them have kind of a human component to it or a people component to it, but they're relatively generic capabilities. Like all organizations have to create some type of capability in these areas, whether it's good or bad. So the first one was social responsibility, the idea of establishing a reputation for sustainability, philanthropy, employability in the industry and the community. The second one was culture, the values and purpose that drive employees. Third is human capital. Are employees skilled and really considered best in the industry? Next is agility and the ability to quickly adapt processes, products, services to meet whatever the changing demands are. Leadership, how well do we build leaders that can execute today? Accountability, are we good at creating and enforcing standards that lead to high performance and execution? Learning is this idea of generating, generalizing, and implementing ideas with impact. Advancing technologies, using predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. It's all of those technical aspects to drive value for stakeholders. Next is collaboration, working together across boundaries to ensure effectiveness and efficiency. And then last is strategic alignment. So creating a shared agenda, broad commitment and engagement around our strategy. So, as you look at these things, again, if you worked within organizations at all or with organizations at all, you'd say, every organization has to have some of these, or has to have all of these capabilities at some level. They may be more important to a tech firm. Some of them may be more important to a tech firm than to a manufacturing firm, but they all have to have these at some level. And so as you look at those capabilities, and I'm going to give you a chance, we're going to take a little poll here. Think about the end, right? Business results, you see that measure of business results that captures all the kind of broad-based view of organizational effectiveness. You've got these 10 capabilities: social responsibility, culture, human capital, agility, leadership, accountability, learning, advancing technologies, collaboration, strategic alignment. Which of these 10 do you think has the strongest impact on business results or business performance? And so Mike's got the poll up. Just go ahead and click which one you think is going to have the greatest impact. And we'll be doing this kind of like almost like a family feud at the end, and be able to see how well everyone did. And again, there's 10 things there. I can, see that it may take a while to think about this, decide which one you think is going to be the most impactful on driving business performance.
Got about 3/4 responses, so we'll give it maybe just a few more seconds.
Okay, so let's see the results. The winners tie between leadership and human capital, with culture coming pretty close behind, and none of the other ones really making much of a difference. So, okay, so human capital, leadership, and culture. And to be honest, I will say that, we all do this. If we do research, we have kind of hypotheses that we think we're going to find the results we think we'll find once we go out and collect the data. And often we find that we were wrong. And so I would have said, again, probably I would have ranked leadership as being the highest or the most important, particularly since we do research on CEO succession here. That would have been my guess. And I would have been dead wrong. Okay, so here's where we go with this. Along the vertical axis, this is kind of how good are we? Okay, and so like how effective are the organizations in terms of these different capabilities? So in terms of effectiveness, culture seems to be the best. Collaboration, accountability, strategic alignment, leadership. So those are all things, human capital, all things that kind of fall above the midpoint in terms of capabilities that we seem to be doing well. Now, when we add in the horizontal dimension, which is what's the impact, things change, right? So again, I would have picked leadership before we did the study. And instead, what really has the greatest impact is social responsibility, followed by culture. So we were pretty close on the culture one because we had leadership and culture, and then human capital as well, and agility. Now, why? I guess, why is the question? Why are we so far off on this? I think some of this goes back to the timing of the study when we were collecting this data. So again, you think about we're coming out of COVID, and what did we learn from COVID? One of the things we learned from COVID is that some companies care about their employees and some companies don't. Okay, some companies care about their customers and some companies don't. So there really was a social component to organizational responses to the whole COVID crisis. I mean, we did work with companies like, we actually had the CEO and CHRO from Home Depot that did a session for us talking about how Home Depot responded to the COVID crisis. And I mean, they did all kinds of investment in trying to protect their customers, trying to protect their employees. And they talked about the money that they spent on this. And when we asked them about, well, what did the board of directors say? Since you guys are spending money in this, I don't say willy-nilly, but you're spending a lot of money on safety. And the response came back, the board was totally supportive. Like, yeah, I mean, right now, profit is not important. Right now, safety is important. We need to protect people, and we'll worry about profitability down the road. Okay, so there was really a social component to the way organizations responded, a social responsibility angle to that, and then add in all of the racial injustice issues that we were facing as a society after that. And so I think this is why you see both that social responsibility was the biggest driver of organizational effectiveness, but also that we weren't that good at it, right? Because we were fixing a lot of this on the fly, trying to determine this as it was happening in real time. So, and here's actual, if you want to break it up, and I think this kind of helps you see what exactly is going on in these results. And so the dark green are the highest or kind of the most impactful ones. The light green are still strong impact, and the white ones are, kind of less impact. And keep in mind that all of these are positive. So it's not like one of these is negatively related to the results measure. All of them are positively related. So all of them are a good thing. It's just they're good in kind of different levels in terms of their impact. And so what you see again, social responsibility, the highest for overall results, and then clearly not surprisingly, the highest for the kind of community CSR results. And then relatively high on the other financial, strategic, and employee metrics. On the other hand, human capital really was the highest on the employee metric, and pretty much the highest on the strategic metric, which again isn't all that surprising. That talent is kind of the ability to manage talent is critical for employee and strategic outcomes. Culture, which again a lot of us picked, was really a strong predictor of financial results, strong predictor of customer results. Agility, the strongest predictor of financial results. And again, given the timing, not surprising. Companies that were able to be agile and change quickly were the ones that were able to deliver the best financial results over this time. So just an idea of kind of the specifics of the results there.
Hey, Pat, can I just give you a time
Yeah.
check? We've got about 8 minutes, and that doesn't include any Q&A, just FYI.
Okay, so we'll blow through the characteristics of an effective HR department. Again, what are these characteristics? What we're looking at is HR practices, the idea of high commitment or high performance practices, the kind of practice alignment, stakeholder value, where the practice is designed around stakeholders, information analytics, going back to the technology piece, capability support, HR department credibility, reliance on HR. And again, if you were to take some of those, we'll skip the poll on this, but just think for yourself. If you were to look at those 7 characteristics, which do you think might be the most strongly related or have the strongest impact on business results? And not everybody's as worried about the HR department. If you look at what our results ended up showing, it was, again, surprising to me. It was the employee practices, kind of the high performance work practices. It was the stakeholder value, that the practices are designed with all stakeholders in mind, and the capability support, that going back to those business capabilities, that the HR department is viewed as focusing on building organizational capabilities. Okay, and again, this is what those numbers look like in terms of the business results, that the employee practices had the strongest impact. Capability support and stakeholder value were tied in terms of their impact. And employee practices was the lowest scoring in terms of effectiveness. So where the greatest opportunity for HR organizations is to implement a better kind of menu of high performance work practices. And then the last is, what are the competencies that you need to deliver the results? And the competencies that we identified here, and this was we had about 80 behavioral items subjected to a factor analysis. We got about 13 sub factors, put them into these larger kind of domains or competencies. And so this is what that model looks like. And just to talk through some of these in terms of accelerating the business, the factors that made that up was generating competitive insight, influencing the business, getting the right things done, and driving agility. Advances human capability. This was elevating talent, delivering HR solutions, and championing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And really the way we like to describe this is that the major kind of competency focus here is, how do we accelerate the business through advancing human capability? And then the kind of mediating ways that we do that is by mobilizing information, leveraging information and technology, and guiding the social agenda. We foster collaboration, both in terms of managing ourselves and building relationships across the organization. And then simplifying complexity, okay, thinking critically and harnessing all of the uncertainty that we had to face during this most recent pandemic. Now we'll take this a quick poll here. If you look at those five competencies, again, which do you think has the strongest impact on business performance? So just do a quick poll here: accelerating the business, advancing human capability, mobilizing information, fostering collaboration, or simplifying complexity. Okay. Should have had a chance to vote. So Mike, if you want to go ahead and close the poll, and we'll see what of the people that voted, what.
Yeah, they're still coming in, half are in. We'll give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, great.
We go.
Okay, so advances human capability, accelerating the business, actually fostering collaboration second, accelerating the business and simplifying complexity last, or next to last, and then mobilizing information gets no votes. Again, answer is actually accelerates the business was one of the strongest one. Advances human capability was the strongest, so correct on that. It accelerates the business. What was kind of interesting about that is that actually was the strongest predictor across all of the different, both individual and group. Okay, so advances human capability was the strongest predictor for business results. It was strong, but not top 2 for the individual effectiveness measures. And then this is, if you take those sub factors and break them out, again, what you see is, and I go back to the time following the issues around racial injustice, champions diversity, equity, and inclusion was the one that had the strongest overall impact on business results, followed by generates competitive insights and elevates talent, and guides the social agenda is kind of in the top in terms of impact, but not necessarily where we are right now. Not necessarily something we're good at as an HR profession. And then this, I don't want to talk about it, but you can see that again, accelerates the business. What that competency does is it really ties in terms of its impact on organization capabilities and the structure of the HR department. It advances human capability similarly, drives the capabilities, and it drives the creation of an effective HR department. So this is why, even though the competencies are not that strongly related to business results directly, what you see is that these competencies are what help build organization capability and a good, effective HR department that then delivers business results. And so what are the implications and next steps for organizations? First, I think you look at these results. We live in an environmental, social, and governance world today. And that means that organizations and HR need to deliver value to all stakeholders, not just shareholders. The Business Roundtable statement on the organizations need to have purpose. Larry Fink's letters talking about the importance of purpose. This total emphasis now is the shareholder primacy model is probably on its way out. It's not to say shareholders are not important, but the recognition that they are an important one, but one of many stakeholders. The second implication is that business leaders and regulators face human capital challenges. The big themes today all deal around human capital issues. And so organizations in HR need to build organization capabilities. And then the last piece is that HR has become this source of organizational success, a driver of organizational success. And so the HR profession really needs to rise to the opportunity to deliver solutions to these human capability challenges. The old days of HR being pencil pushers, kind of the paper brigade. There may still be organizations doing that, but effective organizations need HR organizations, HR departments, and HR professionals that have stepped up. So with that, what kind of questions do you have? We've run through all of these results pretty quickly. Any questions that you've got about the results, about the study, about implications, about anything like that?
You can type them into the Q&A box. We'll be happy to take questions. And I don't see any right now, but Patrick, I did have a question. The studies that were conducted all over the years, did you predict some of these results ahead of time, and where does it go from here?
Yeah, so again, not having been involved before, I didn't make any predictions before. And every year they've kind of gotten more sophisticated in how they've looked at the data. But what's ended up happening is that I used to kind of joke that every year every iteration the model got more complex, and they got more sophisticated in terms of the results measures they were using as kind of the metric to determine what really matters. And in the last iteration, I think the one that came out as being the most important competency was this paradox navigator, the ability of an HR professional to manage paradoxes that exist. Like we need to have both fit and flexibility. We need to be both efficient and effective. And so there's these demands for what seem to be competing demands, and how do we manage those competing demands? And you see it kind of come out. Dave actually, he hasn't integrated this one in yet, but he actually came up with a paper that he wrote where he just traces how those competencies have evolved in everyone. And you can see that there are similarities, but they get more sophisticated, more specific as the study has gone over time. So I got a question about where can you find a copy of the study? So there's a few places you can get that. One is we were doing a series on LinkedIn. So every Monday I would write an article presenting the results from one phase of the study. And then on Tuesday, Dave would do an article that was his reflection on those results. So you can get all of these results by going to my LinkedIn and just clicking on the articles that I've written, and you'll see this series. I think it was 4 or 5 different articles about the HR competency and capability study. And then once you found those, if you go to Dave's LinkedIn page, you'll be able to find the articles that he wrote that were in response to those things. There is an article that's been written that's available through RBL, and I believe that's rbl.com is the website. That's Result-Based Leadership. It's the consulting firm that Dave founded. And Aaron Burns took some of the stuff that we had written in terms of the sub articles on LinkedIn and put that into kind of a larger report. So I think if you go to rbl.com, you'll be able to get access to that larger report.
Okay, great. Well, we don't have any other questions. We're up against time. I just want to thank everybody for joining. Thank you, Pat, for a great presentation. I do want to make a mention that there'll be an email follow-up where we'll be sending out the recording of this presentation as well as the slides. We want to thank everyone for joining. I know we have other series events planned throughout the day, so please check that registration screen that you guys used to sign up. And with that, I want to thank everyone. Thank you, Pat, and have a great day.
All right, thanks everyone. Thanks for spending time with us.